Good morning, everybody. This is Stephen Pugh of the Home Bible College. We're looking at the last few chapters of Jeremiah. We're beginning in chapter 41, where he records the prophecy of the judgment of Babylon. The Lord will send a strong wind that will bring destruction. The Lord will bring destruction in the same form in which they will wage war. This describes the fall of a restored Babylon during the tribulation. The Lord will break in pieces everything and everyone in the land. Now, some of the prophecies here were fulfilled in the days of the kings of Babylon, and some of it is yet to be fulfilled. You see, according to Scripture, there will be a resurrection of the empire of Babylon in the last days, and then there will be a complete destruction of Babylon all over again. The Lord will break in pieces everything and everyone in the land, and Jeremiah again writes a scroll of all of the evil deeds of Babylon, so that the king of Babylon will know why the city will be destroyed forever. And then when the king has read the scroll, it is bound to a stone and thrown into the river Euphrates. And in this way, he says, Babylon will sink without a trace. Zedekiah was an evil king. He did evil in his day. His mother's name is recorded, as she is responsible for his upbringing, his education. This has been described before by Jeremiah. The Babylonians carried away all the treasure of the temple, and evil Merodach, king of Babylon, brought Jehoiachin, the king of Judah, and brought him out of the prison and enthroned him above all the kings of Babylon. And he was well fed all the days of his life. And so the Lord disciplined Israel and judged the nations in the time of Jeremiah. And this brings to an end the book of Jeremiah, a long book, fascinating book, a book that's startling in its prophecies. Let's just go back through these passages, and I want to pick out a few points and tell you what my password for today is. Now, in the first part it says this. It says, Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I will raise up against Babylon, and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me, a destroying wind. And I will send unto Babylon fanners, that shall fan her, and shall empty her land. For in the day of trouble they shall be round about. They shall be against her round about. So, there will be two destructions of Babylon. The first destruction of Babylon will be by the Medes and the Persians. Let's have a look at verse 11. It says, Make bright the arrows and gather the shields. The Lord hath raised up the spirit of the kings of the Medes, for his device is against Babylon to destroy it, because it is the vengeance of the Lord, the vengeance of his temple. So this was an empire. Babylon was an empire, and the Medes and the Persians rose up against Babylon, and they invaded Babylon with a secret army and with secret tactics, and they destroyed the whole empire in a night. Remember the writing on the wall in Daniel? When a hand appeared, your kingdom has been weighed in the balances and found wanting. Well, that very night, the Medes and the Persians came into Babylon, and they completely took over the kingdom. Now, that destruction was not a total destruction. It was a takeover, and the Babylonian Empire was just taken over by the Medes. And so this was a destruction against Babylon. Let's read a little bit further down in the next chapter, in verse 28. It says, Prepare against her the nations with the kings of the Medes and the captains thereof, and all the rulers thereof, and all the land of his domain. So And you say, well, who were these Medes? Well, in the verse before it says, let me read it to you. It says, set up a standard in the land and blow the trumpet against the nations. Prepare the nations against her. Call together against her the kingdoms of Ararat and of Mini and of Ashkenaz. So the Ashkenazis, the Minis and the Ararat, these were the kingdoms that came against Babylon. They were the Medes, and they came against Babylon to overtake it. But they did not totally destroy the city. They basically took over the city, and we see this in the life of Daniel. We're going to see that in the book of Daniel. Let me move on down the passage. So the Babylonians were really taken over. Verse 33, for thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, the daughter of Babylon is like a threshing floor. It is time to thresh her, yet a little while, and the time of her harvest shall come. So this is how the Lord will deal with the nations. But verse 36, speaking about Israel, it says, and Babylon shall become heaps and a dwelling place for dragons and an astonishment and a hissing without an inhabitant. Now the taking over of Babylon by the Medes and the Persians was not a total destruction. So this is still a future prophecy. If you can go to Babylon today, and it's a thriving city and a thriving country. Of course, the Gulf Wars has brought the city down, but nevertheless it's still a thriving city, and it will thrive more and more and more until in the end times it will be probably one of the greatest empires, or rather one of the greatest countries and cities in the world, and will be destroyed again by the Lord from fire from heaven. And we know this is so because when we look in verse 41, it says, how is Shishak taken, and how is the praise of the whole earth surprised? How is Babylon become an astonishment among the nations? Now there are prophecy teachers who say that this Babylon is Rome. Well, it's impossible to make Babylon Rome. No, this and when John is writing in the book of Revelation and he refers to Babylon, he's not referring to Rome, he's referring to Babylon. And we know that because in Rome there's no Shishak. Okay, how is Shishak taken, and how is the praise of the whole earth surprised? How is Babylon become an astonishment among the nations? It says, the sea is come up upon Babylon, she is covered with a multitude of the waves thereof. Her cities are a desolation and a dry land and a wilderness, and no man, and a land wherein no man dwelleth, nor doth any man pass thereby. I will punish Bel in Babylon. I will bring forth out of his mouth that which swallowed up the nations shall not flow together any more unto him. Yea, the wall of Babylon shall fall. Now the wall of Babylon was huge. It was it was massive. It was so big, in fact, that you could race 3 chariots abreast along the top of the wall. It was very wide indeed. That wall will one day be completely destroyed. Of course, it was never destroyed in ancient times. It will be destroyed in the future. Now take a look at verse 60. So Jeremiah wrote a book of all the evil that should come upon Babylon. Even all these words are written against Babylon. And Jeremiah said unto Shiriah, when thou comest to Babylon, and shalt see, thou shalt read all these words. Then shalt thou say, O Lord, thou hast spoken against this place to cut it off, that none shall remain in it, neither man nor beast. It shall be desolate forever. Now, if you go to Babylon today, you'll find it's not desolate. There are people that live there. There are creatures, there are animals, there are sheep, there are camels, there are all sorts of But this is a prophecy about a future destruction. And he says, and it shall be that when thou hast made an end of reading this book, thou shalt bind a stone on it, and cast it into the midst of Euphrates, and thou shalt say, thus shall Babylon sink, and shall not rise from the evil which I will bring upon her, and they shall be weary. Thus far are the words of Jeremiah. Wow. Now in the next chapter, we have the destruction of Jerusalem fulfilled, and it's the record of how the Lord allowed the Babylonians to come to Israel and to totally destroy the city. So in verse 1, Zedekiah was 21 when he began to reign. He reigned for 11 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Hamutal, and the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah, and he did that which was evil in the eyes of the Lord, according to all that Jehoiakim had done. So his mother's name is mentioned for her disgrace, and his father's name is mentioned because he was his father's son, and he did the same as his father had done, which is that he did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Now, when a man does evil in the eyes of the Lord, he is a wicked man. He is an unrighteous man. There's two sorts of people in the world. There's those that do what is right, and those that do what is evil. And so as a result of that, the Lord brought the destruction of Jerusalem in his lifetime. We also read of the destruction of the temple itself, and the pillars of brass and all the vessels were taken away to Babylon. It's very interesting that none of it here mentions the Ark of the Covenant. None of it. So where that went, nobody knows. But we know that the Ark of the Covenant probably was saved from this destruction. I think the Lord allowed the priests to spirit it away, that it might be used again in a future day. Well, there we are. That's the end of the book of Jeremiah. What an amazing journey it's been. What an amazing life Jeremiah had. He was protected from all his enemies. Those that rose up against him were totally defeated, and he died in the end in his own bed, an old man. So there we are. Well, look forward to speaking to you again tomorrow. We're going to read the Lamentations of Jeremiah. Jeremiah had a sad prophecy to bring. It brought him great sorrow. He's known as the weeping prophet. And tomorrow we're going to read some of his laments. Well, God bless you. Look forward to speaking to you then. Have a wonderful day. Bye for now.